Yep. Hola, què tal? Ja estem en directe a través d'un altre streaming de la pera. Què tal, Ferran Delgado? On pares? On estàs?
Hola, hola. Salgo de Vilanova.
A Vilanova i la Geltrú, Vilanova i la Geltrú.
Sí.
Com mola.
A la platja.
A la platja. ¿Y tú, Paco?
Sí, en casa, en Matarraña.
A Matarraña. Casi os tiráis una piedra y pasáis de un lado al otro. ¿No? No, está mucho más para abajo.
Sí, está estamos más arriba.
Vamos a ver si este funciona el ruido. Parece que sí que funciona el streaming. Pues nada, sale un poco pixelizado.
Sí.
No sé por qué es. Sale pixelizado el streaming. No sé si es por mi recepción o por... No sé, hoy las hadas están alteradas. Aunque voy a ver si soy capaz de meter aquí en el mixto. Sí, creo que voy a ser capaz. Un momentito. Voy a ver si soy capaz de meter la señal que se nos vea a nosotros y el lanzamiento. Sí, ahora estamos ahí con un montón de streamings. Hola, ¿estáis vivos? Que os decía que se ven los streamings de los youtubers potentes estos que están aquí. Me gusta el del Padre Lab, el padre que está, la padre que está allí al lado justo, que ayer en el streaming de SpaceX hizo el Elon a última hora. Paco hizo, claro, de los pocos que quedáis aquí cerca, porque todo el mundo se ha ido del pueblo, pues han comprado las casas carísimas, pero el padre dice que no, que él se queda ahí. Debe ser creo que es la penúltima casa que queda para comprar el pueblecito, y tiene ahí puesta la cámara en primer plano. Desde luego los tanques, mira, los tanques arriba han dejado de sacar ¿qué es lo que sacan? Han dejado de sacar el excedente, que es, Paco, lo que sacan. El vapor, ¿es vapor de agua? Cuando están cargando.
Es el mismo gas que están cargando, que va a llegar a una presión que ponen unos orificios para que no explote, que sale por ahí.
Ajá.
Y lo cortan. Pero cogieron una luego cuando está cargado, como todo empieza a tomar temperatura, pues también se dilatan y sí tienen también los destaques, los gases.
Estabas mirando la retransmisión de llançament también.
Sí, Everyday está ahí charlando con una chica. Bueno, a ratos. Ellos solo tienen el sol. Tienen el sol puesto allí. Y no
Sí.
van cambiando los ratos. Él ya hace un montaje importante. Llega la fregoneta allí con todo ese equipo. Hace un montaje ya bastante curioso. El team, ¿no? ¿Se llama? ¿El team? Sí, además ayer lo dijo también Elon, que a la vez está recordar que de aquí a poco vamos a enviar a los primeros, como dijo, artists, ¿no? Enviar a los artistas hacia la luna. Y artists y influencers, joder, imagínate, ¿eh? Y la luna es algo hardcore, ¿eh? Una pasada. No entiendo por qué se ve tan mal el streaming. ¿Qué problema hay ahí? ¿Tengo un problema de red? ¿Podéis comprobarlo vosotros? ¿Tú lo ves bien?
Lo ves bien, ¿eh? Sí.
¿De resolución? Sí.
Resolución lo bastante bien.
Yo lo veo pixelizado en esta máquina. No sé por qué. En la máquina que tengo aquí al lado, que es con la que chequeo el streaming. Bueno, pues, ¿qué esperáis? ¿Vamos a subir para arriba, Paco, o no vamos a subir para arriba? Bueno, no se ha hecho nunca. Este no se ha hecho. Aparte, como dice él, es el que más combustible tiene, el que es más alto, el que es más todo, más que el Saturn V. Decía ayer en la retransmisión. ¿Viste lo del QRF, lo del camp, Paco, al final? ¿Lo viste? ¿Viste el streaming en directo? Yo ayer no entendí lo que pasó en el streaming de este hombre. O sea...
Yo con mis hijos yo vi dos cachitos. Y luego cuando miré esta cosa de TikTok, lo quitaron el vídeo, lo quitaron, cuando yo lo miré, lo quitaron ya a la vez.
Sí, pero yo llegué a hacer una foto, la pasé, o sea, eso pasó. O sea, ¿qué hicieron esta gente? Está loco el tío este.
Ayer me transmitieron un directo de él, supongo.
Sí. Claro, cuando estaba allí hablando a sus acólitos, a sus currantes. Ferran, tú no vas a ver ahora, ¿no? En el último segundo dice, y ahora vamos a hacer no sé qué. Y el tío saca un QR. Eso se llevaba luego SpaceX en medio. Y dice que... Y saca un tweet suyo en pantalla, con él y la máquina detrás todo espectacular, y diciendo que ahora vamos a hacer... Era como una burla a todos los que se están burlando de él permanentemente, que le meten canales en YouTube para hacer scams con bitcoins. Fue como una burla, pero es que lo dice, no lo entiendo. O sea, es que ese tío funciona de una manera, este genio.
Yo luego, nada más que lo vi, el vídeo fue eliminado de la red.
Sí. Lo quitaron. Pero... Sí, fue instantáneo. Pero es que se va a dar la olla, este hombre. Se va a dar la olla. Pues qué imagen más bonita, o sea... Es que además como allí son las 8:10 de la mañana, creo ahora. ¿8:10? ¿8:10? Sí. No, son las 7:10. 7:10. O local. Central. Sí, está en Central, claro. Es que es Central esto no es la hora costa, esto es Central. Estas son las 7:10. Pone la cámara del padre que está puesta ahí pinchada ahora. Y las imágenes son espectaculares. Habéis ido viendo las imágenes que ha puesto el Elon. Hostia, ha puesto unas imágenes de... Esto no sale bien. Ups. Eso está bien.
El oficial que no quedan 3 minutos.
Sí, está ahí preparado. Sí, el oficial inicia ya.
Es que no puedo decidir resolución, pero... No lo veo. En 20 minutos se cuenta.
Han retrasado 20 minutos. Teóricamente van a empezar ya.
Lo que comentaba, es interesante el tema de que no deben recuperar la nave en aquest cas per no fer post-test o anàlisi. En aquest cas, no? del web és perquè bueno, els assajos posteriors van poder recuperar perfectament, no? Els altres vehicles que quan has apiat aquest super heavy, no? En aquest cas, què passa, no? Bones expectatives, tu, André?
Pues no lo tengo claro. Yo es que cuando veo la foto ahí con los cuántos van medidos, 39 bichos debajo.
Lleva 33 motores 30 en la parte inferior y luego 3 en la...
Paco se ha caído. Yo... A ver, han hecho pruebas de las dos partes independientes. O sea, el superior ya ha volado porque se ha volado y la parte toda nueva del heavy, esa ha volado también, pero no han volado las dos juntas. Entonces, claro, la cantidad burra que dijeron ayer de los pesos y todo esto que ocupa eso y vamos, que hay mucha novedad. Ha vuelto.
Lo que todos esperamos de que pudieran testar el depósito de los tanques.
Debe decir a Paco que cierre la puerta, que entra con pistas al váter. Queda natural. Me ponete un fondo como el cerrar el mío. Estamos en el espacio los dos.
Lo de recuperar, ¿no? Es que sí creo que es funcional porque es demasiadas cosas. Entonces se conforman con que no se destroce. Eso es lo que le hace demasiado complejo.
Mientras no se flete antes de salir, será un éxito.
Claro, la movida es esta, porque además es un vuelo cortito, creo que es 1 hora y media, creo, 90 minutos.
Sí.
No, ahora ya estamos esperando a SpaceX que empiece la retransmisión. Teóricamente han de esperar empezar en cualquier momento. En la práctica ya se verá. Ya lo veremos. A qué hora empieza realmente esto y que no tengan mucho jaleito. Porque... no sé, yo me maravillo. Aparte, ayer estuve explicando Eso bien en el vídeo, mirarlo, me imagino que lo publicarán. Estoy explicando cómo han reducido un montón la complejidad del motor, ¿no? O sea, se veía, lo tenían puesto allí, ¿no? Tenían la versión antigua, la V1 y la V2 y... ostras, qué pesada. Más potencia, mucho menos complicado el montaje.
Y más probablemente.
Seguramente, claro, al ser una tecnología así tan nueva, pues está claro que seguramente se puede optimizar mucho, ¿no?
A ver qué dice.
Por su principio de la mejor parte es no parte.
Claro,
La mejor parte es no parte.
Entonces, para la mejor pieza es con una pieza.
Ah, claro. Sí. Claro. Bueno.
Es el doble de pequeño que los motores que pueden afectarse el Falcon 9, el Meteor Engine. Afectarse el Raptor. Tiene el doble de potencia. Están curiosos.
Bueno, toda la parte de abajo ya está cargada. Ya ahora están cargando la zona superior. Eso lo explica en Twitter de SpaceX. Y veremos.
Antes, hace rato, he leído que había habido un accidente con el ascensor en la torre, ¿os suena? Que se han visto
¿Ah, sí?
chispas y tal.
No.
Y la gente subiendo con las máquinas de las elevadoras de personas subiendo para arriba.
¿Ah, sí?
Ahí está.
¿Lo han dicho eso dónde?
En el Twitter, lo he visto pasar esta mañana. Decía, y había dicho que Elon había dicho que 3 días de retraso, pero a lo mejor es virus.
Uy, yo no veo nada en su
Si hubiera roto el contrapeso del montacargas,
Ajá.
hubiera caído por lo menos parte del contrapeso a plomo desde arriba.
Ya.
Se lo veía en vídeo.
Sí, yo lo he visto algo que es eso, una cosa que ha hecho coloteando por dentro de la torre, pero...
Jolín, pues no veo el tweet ese yo. No se ve nada de eso en su timeline. Lo tengo aquí. Es que el problema es ese ahora, que ahora ya no sabemos qué es cierto y qué no es cierto.
Todo puede ser fake.
O sea, ni en el timeline de uno ni en el otro, ni en SpaceX ni en el Elon Musk, no hay ninguna referencia a que esté...
¿Es reciente?
Un segundito que lo voy a encontrar.
El fake. Esperando, pero... ¿Cuántos hay esperando, dices, Ferran? 428.000 usuarios en espera. O sea, hay unas cuantas personas. Voy a poner por el streaming, a ver si capaz de hacerlo, unas imágenes de estas que hay, que ha ido poniendo Iloncito, que pidió Paco. Ayer como estaban ahí currando con los elevadores a última hora, pero currando normal de currar. Y después hay unas fotos preciosas que imagino que se las saca en exclusiva, ¿no? Porque claro, no te puedes acercar mucho, aunque con tele seguro que se hacen virguerías, pero hay unos planos sacados con dron que son impresionantes. Y entonces no habéis visto el vídeo que... El Paco sí que lo viste, ¿no? El vídeo que pusieron ayer, ¿no? El vídeo lo viste, el vídeo de promoción. Ostras, puso un vídeo de estos de 3D ya que ya no sumon. Primero comenzaba normal, que se no sé cuántos. Sí, exacto. Ya llegan, entonces cuando salen, Ferran, se ven 2 lanzaderas en la zona esta que se está viendo ahora de SpaceX, 2, no una, y así decoradas con neones alrededor, todo súper friki, no sé cuántos. Y sube un cohete y se va para el espacio, y justo cuando está en el espacio se ve que se acopla a otro para la parte superior para hacer el refueling. Y el tío suelta uno de sus chistes y dice, bueno, esto puede pasar otra cosa, pero no voy a hacer ningún chiste, como diciendo algo sexual, ¿sabes? Y suelta, y dice, él mismo se hace el chiste, aunque sí que es un intercambio de fluidos. Divertido. Y entonces se ve como se va el Heavy, se va para Marte y allí cuando llega, no es que llega a Marte solo, es que en Marte ya hay civilización, hay una especie de cúpula de vidrio transparente gigantesca con gente viviendo, un montón de campos de aterrizaje para las naves, vamos, era Totalation. Y de los clamps, esto Ferran, tú que eres un ingeniero de mecánico, esto para ti tiene que ser maravilloso, ¿no? O sea, yo ahora estoy poniendo la foto esta de los, ¿cómo se llama el enganche? El enganche para la nave.
Sí, los brazos de enganche para
Pero tiene un nombre. Este montaje que han hecho es espectacular.
Es muy fuerte. Yo es que estoy esperando mucho a ver este momento donde realmente intenten pescar el...
Pero hoy no van a pescar nada. Hoy lo van a soltar desde ahí. Hoy lo único que van a hacer es retirarlo para que suba.
Intentarán hacer un aterrizaje suave, pero sin lo que comentábamos, ¿no? Seguiría siendo un problema exitoso, ¿no? Pero sí, de hecho, el primer stage se desacopla bastante rápido, ¿no?
En el timeline eso.
10 minutos, sí. Alcanza los máximos apenas antes de cumplir el minuto de vuelo. Es un vuelo bastante...
Yo soy de mi parte, o sea, que no quiero que pronto cambiar el mundo hay que hacer la velocidad por mi parte.
Exacto. Realmente eso también es un ejemplo de la tránsito de una carrera eólica. De hecho, no cumple ni una vuelta, depende de todo, ¿no?
No llega a coger la velocidad, porque no importa su obra más importante debe ser primero que alguna vez no llega ni a una línea de carne, o sea, porque va a poder interesante la reentrada en la atmósfera al proceso de cómo funciona. Ese elevador yo lo he visto y he visto una respuesta de alguien, vino una cuenta de esa y la o sea, que debería ser una
fake. O algo de un trabajador que se ha escapado y le han dicho, borra eso, que soy el amo de Twitter y si no te lo borro yo. En teoría no va bien la cosa, porque llevan 7 minutos de retraso y no empiezan. Tampoco están diciendo nada en el Twitter. Y si lo que decíais ahora tengo puesto en pantalla toda la planificación de hoy, ¿no? El aterrizaje del Starship es bueno, claro, porque el Starship sí que lo recuperan, va a una plataforma, ¿no? ¿No? No, hay un dibujito que parece una plataforma. No, hay un dibujito que parece una plataforma, pero no, eso será a la zona de Splash, imagino.
Sí, pero los dos, en teoría, los dos en el mar.
Sí, uno aterriza en la Golfo de México, ahí al lado, porque se levanta y vuelve a caer. Que han hecho un pedazo aviso de estos, un NOTAM de decir, nadie se mueve al Caribe, que vamos a estar nosotros montando un cirio hoy. En serio, ayer lo explicaban, ¿no? Había toda la zona ahí de no volar. El Starship. ¿Y lo va a frenar? Pero se estrella en el agua. Esa imagen vale el precio, ¿eh? Esa imagen, porque vamos a ver una cosa. ¿Cuánta pasta cuesta lo que van a quemar hoy los de SpaceX? Pero vamos a ver, es que van a quemar los 37 motores totales, creo que son, entre los de la parte baja y la parte alta, el Heavy y el Starship, y toda la estructura, más no sé cuántos, 800 toneladas de combustible que dijo ayer Elon que va dentro. Joder. Esas fotos... No, por lo menos la giran, no baja, porque se ve cómo hace el belly flop. A ver, eso en el dibujito. Dice Starship Entry, se ve cómo hace el giro. ¿No llamaban eso el belly flop?
Sí, pero me parece que lo tiene como una objetivo, pero no sé.
Bueno, ahí se veía un dibujito cómo lo giran, por lo menos. ¿Va a bajar directo para abajo? ¿Va a bajar planeando? ¿Va a planear? ¿Planea? ¿En serio? Pero planea. Una cosa es planear y otra cosa es bajar con las alitas. ¿Va a bajar así? Han vuelto a retrasarlo 10 minutos, porque han vuelto a poner el contador 10 minutos más para adelante. Hoy no sé si lanzan hoy, ¿eh? No sé si lanzan, están retrasando esto todo el rato. ¿Qué dicen ahora? ¿Dónde están? A ver. Uy, ¿qué dice el long? Mira, cryogenic propellant load of Starship is on the way. Ah, pero esto lo han retuiteado SpaceX ahora, porque esto no hace más rato. Bueno, habrá mucha gente mirando, ¿eh? Ayer, la verdad es que os aconsejo que si vosotros os gusta esto, y a los que no, si alguien nos ve, que os veáis el vídeo de ayer de SpaceX, porque piensas, este tío lo que tiene que hacer es dejarse de Twitter, que lo gestione un CEO y que se dedique realmente a tirar los cohetes y se centre totalmente en esto, ¿eh? Y explicó cosas bastante interesantes, lo hizo bien con su estilo particular que tiene. Y el CGI final era chulo. Y las comparaciones que hizo también estaban bien. Y la explicación de las toneladas métricas y todo este tema. Que menos. Pero por ahora 7 minutitos más que nos van a tener aquí. Pues está poniendo una de las fotos. Habéis ido viendo estas fotos que hacen espectaculares, pues claro, se está perdido ahí. Antes de entrar en directo, Ferran, hablábamos de un viaje pago que teníamos medio hablado de irnos a Estados Unidos a hacer un recorrido con los otros estudiantes de Pera, a ir a visitar diferentes zonas del espacio en Estados Unidos. Y habíamos dicho obviamente de ir a Boca Chica, que menos. Y claro, es que es un sitio que los cogieron porque está abandonado a la mano de Dios. Porque no pagan impuestos y porque no hay nada alrededor, porque lo decía Elon ayer, que claro, el problema de hacer estos montajes de R&D es que no se pueden ir a hacer esto a Cabo Cañaveral, porque primero molestan a todas las actividades comerciales que tienen, al resto de lanzamientos suyos y de otros, y después que es una apuesta porque no sabes lo que va a pasar. Entonces allí, imagínate que se desliza la nave hasta Orlando y monta un pifostio allí, ¿no? Aquí alrededor de Boca Chica, ahí entre nadie y nadie durante no sé cuántos kilómetros. Que te has perdido la mano de Dios. Sí, eso está bajo la frontera. Sí, pero de todas formas, al principio la frontera de ese lado me suena a mí que está bastante despoblada, ¿no? No recuerdo. Vamos a ponerlo aquí en el mapa. No recuerdo que tenga Boca Chica. Vamos a poner estos mapas. A ver si lo veo bien. Aquí está. Ahora estoy sacando por el streaming. Tiene una pedazo de laguna impresionante al lado, ¿eh? Los nombres son divertidos. Heroica Matamoros, la ciudad más cercana.
Todavía hay fuerte línea de la conquista española, de la conquista sur.
Claro, justo en la frontera, heroica Matamoros. No, todos los términos son castellanos, españoles. Olmito. Mira, hay una cosa que se llama Del Mar Heights. Los Fresnos, San Pedro, los Compadres, el Tajuachal. Entonces hay heroica Matamoros, que aquí no sé la distancia que va a haber, pues 140 kilómetros, no sé. Pero después hacia abajo hay todo un montón más de zonas así de esto, de zonas de estas de lagunas y tal, muchos kilómetros. Y hacia adentro se ven algunas poblaciones, pero no muy grandes. La más grande es Reynosa.
Los medioambientales hacen los problemas para los permisos para hacer las acciones ahí. Por el tema de la biodiversidad, que hay reservas,
¿También se debieron quejar los mexicanos o qué? Sí, es igual porque estaban en terreno americano. No puede usted quejarse, estamos en América.
Ahora que le han aplazado, pues, cuando faltan
3.50 en el siguiente countdown. Otra cosa será que funcione, no sé.
Porque pues la retransmisión es muy directa. Claro, el countdown en sí es lo que estamos contando aquí en la retransmisión en directo. O es habrá alguna historia de todo.
Yo creo que enganchan a aquello típico, algunos minutos para acabar de subir y bajar lo que sea.
El teamwork tiene ustedes 58 horas, o sea, 58 minutos.
El team tiene una hora de... A ver.
Sí, no sé, Pajarito, pero lo escuché entero. Pero el teamwork tiene ahí el T menos 0, 52.
T menos 48. Jolín.
Pues sí, me falta un ratillo.
No sé, no lo tengo claro, ¿eh? Lo que está claro es que lo han ido retrasando varias veces.
Sí.
Sí, y los padres también tienen términos 47, que todos tienen una hora para.
Sí, tienes razón. Pues me da puñeta. Casi que nos vamos a comer, dejamos esto encendido y volvemos después.
¿Podríamos ir a comer?
Dejamos, sí. Cuando esperemos a ver si entran los de SpaceX, los dejamos ahí conectados, vamos a comer y volvemos. No, porque a lo mejor sí que es cierto, o sea, sí puede ser que esta sea la movida. Ellos lo tenían puesta la retransmisión una hora antes y nosotros entrábamos unos minutos antes. Entonces, cuando hemos entrado y ya lo habían retrasado, es porque realmente lo han retrasado una hora y algo. O sea, es lo que te dice, sí. Seguramente pasa eso. Seguramente. Bueno, esperemos el minuto y medio a ver que nos expliquen lo que sea. Porque por otro lado, en su Twitter están diciendo que está ahí funcionando. Vamos a poner el vídeo de promoción que han puesto ellos. Vamos a hacer el promo. Ah, no, están enlazando al... Ah, no. Han enlazado el stream. Vamos a ver si pincho esto. Es muy parecido a Cabo Canaveral, son los Everglades estos. No sé si habrá cocodrilos, imagino que también. Ya empieza la retransmisión. No, empieza. Pero no acaban de... SpaceX. Lo cual quiere decir que... Sí, si ponen eso, si ponen un countdown hasta más rato, pues sacamos la barra, pues dejamos ahí con sus chicas y chicos haciendo la prueba. Ahora lo que nos han puesto es música. Bueno, a ver, con toda claridad, el streaming es muy importante para ellos, pero lo importante es el resto, o sea, que el streaming se decora... espacial, llena de GoPros por todas partes. Eso sin contar todos los chorrocientos, porque han invitado a un montón de prensa, ayer hicieron un montón de entrevistas por los medios gordos. Y entonces, pues claro, está tirando toda la carne al asador, muy típico. Desespera. Ferran, ¿y tú no tienes una chupa de estas o qué? No puede ser. ¿Y no te llegaron las pegatinas a Estados Unidos? No lo he traído, lo tengo en el despacho, está en los laboratorios. Y mira que lo he pechado, pero lo que pasa es que lo tengo allí, ya sabes que lo tienen bastante, pues hemos llevado muchos eventos, están un poco justitas. El Starship está sano, pero el Falcon 9 está pobre muy tocado ya. Lo he ido reparando porque claro, hiciste una maqueta tan súper chula y con detallista que me pasaba que como lo hemos llevado a varios eventos que hemos movido, eso sí, siempre con cuidado con cajas, que les tocan muchas manos y siempre los rompe. Y hay cosas que están pegadas con la técnica ya, no se pueden mover y alguna está un poco escachuflada. Ahora están poniendo el vídeo promocional. Han pinchado el vídeo que acabamos de pinchar hace un momento nosotros. Sí. Ya queda aquí un minuto y medio. Se supone que entra. Eso sí, lo primero el estallido. Toma, estallido.
Good morning. You're looking at a live view of Starship as it awaits its first ever integrated flight test from Starbase, Texas, in just a little over 40 minutes from now. Today we're hoping to see our Super Heavy booster and Starship spacecraft,
vale, pues si queréis hacemos esto.
referred to as Starship, lift off together for the first time. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm Shiva Bharadwaj, a space operations engineer here at SpaceX. Now, as many of you know, Starship is SpaceX's latest and largest vehicle developed to date. It represents a fully reusable transportation system designed to carry both crew and cargo to Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond.
If you've been following the development of Starship over the last couple of years, you know we've been doing a lot of testing leading up to this big one. Once fully developed, it will be the world's most powerful launch vehicle, which twice the thrust of Saturn V rocket and the ability to carry up to 150 metric tons to orbit. For reference, a 1-liter bottle of water is 1 kilogram.
Data as we can around the fully integrated vehicles. That means the booster and the Starship and the ground systems. While we have flown Starship in the past, this will be the first attempt of Super Heavy and the first opportunity to validate how the two vehicles operate together.
Any data that we get helps improve the future builds of Starship will be considered a success for the purposes of today's test. Every milestone beyond that is icing on the cake. The further we fly, the more data we can collect. If all goes well, today's flight test combination of both excitement is pretty much guaranteed.
Now, if it does all go well, Super Heavy will fire up its 33 Raptor engines and it'll lift off from the launch pad down in South Texas. About 3 minutes into the flight, we're going to hope to see the Super Heavy separate from the Starship spacecraft. It'll then perform a flip maneuver. So there's that. You can see that on your screen. And then it'll boost back in order to make a hard landing in the Gulf of Mexico.
And while that's happening, we hope to see Starship's 6-second stage engines ignite and watch as Starship coasts for about an hour at altitudes ranging between 150 and 250 kilometers before re-entering Earth's atmosphere and make its own hard landing in the Pacific Ocean about 250-ish kilometers offshore.
Now, we are getting great camera views right now, but that's because we are on the launch pad, so we've got umbilicals and connections straight to the vehicle. But we aren't expecting to get very many good views once we get past booster separation.
Yeah, we do promise, though, for any views that we do get, we will share them in real time. We are watching live with you all, so we're excited to see those views ourselves as well.
Now, in a little bit, we are going to take a closer look at the vehicle and the launch pad. But first, today is a super exciting day. Everyone on the teams across Starship have been preparing, doing a number of tests and dress rehearsals for today's launch attempt.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, we saw a nice little recap of those tests in the intro video to today's webcast. For those of you that are following along, you know that many of those tests ended in those rapid unscheduled disassemblies, or RUDs as we like to call them. And it's been a long road to today. Just in 2022 alone, we had 9 static fires. We've had a couple of wet dress rehearsals. And of course, the launch control team has done numerous simulations as well.
So major shout out to the teams that have been preparing for today's full-up integrated test. In fact, we've got a shot of Star Command, the South Texas launch control team. Look at all the people ready for today's launch attempt.
Yeah, that right there is our South Texas Launch Control Center. That is basically ground zero for everything that is happening today, in addition to a couple other control rooms that we have operating as well, with operators on console, including the Mission Control Center here behind us here in Hawthorne, California. But with that being said, our very own Zachary Lupin is one of our SpaceX employees at our watch event in South Padre Island. Hey, Zach, how are things going on the ground?
It is a great day for a test launch today, Kate. Hello, everyone. My name is Zachary Lupin, and I'm an avionics reliability engineer here at SpaceX, and I'm at the Cameron County Amphitheater, where a growing number of SpaceX employees are gathering to watch what we hope is the first liftoff of a fully integrated Starship. Now, the Starship team has worked incredibly hard for today's launch test. Over the past weekend, teams held a launch readiness review, which included a comprehensive review of all of our vehicle systems, looking at avionics, GNC, communications, software, structures, as well as our Raptor engines and propulsion in general. Now, we are only about 5 miles away from the launch pad, so it's a pretty good view for today. And as we get into as we start to approach T-0, everyone here is clearly very excited for the events that are happening today. So as we get closer to T0, I'm going to throw it back to Hawthorne to talk more about our rocket.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Zach. And we've actually got a little bit of a crowd forming behind us, too. Now, we've got a shot of Starship on the screen. The entire Starship structure you see is made of stainless steel. And when that's fully stacked, it stands about 120 meters tall and about 9 meters around. To help you give a sense of just how big that is, we've captured a video of some of our teams doing final integration prep work in advance of today's test flight.
Just like Falcon 9, Starship has 2 stages, which we will talk a little bit more about in a minute. But in addition to those 2 stages, Starship actually has a 3rd stage called Stage 0. It consists of all the launch pad infrastructure built around the rocket. You can see a great view of it there on your screen. It's truly an engineering feat in its own right.
And I feel like it's something we don't talk about very often. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into fueling and preparing the launch vehicle before a large test like this, and really any launch. Now, let's talk about Super Heavy. The name says it all. It's super, it's heavy, it's super heavy. It goes by some other names, the first stage or the booster, but whatever you call it, the Super Heavy will be the vehicle responsible for powering Starship against that mighty gravitational pull we've got here on Earth. And when it's fully operational, it's going to get Starship to orbit.
The booster alone stands about 70 meters tall and is about the same height as a fully integrated Falcon 9, but with a diameter roughly 2.5 times that of Falcon 9, and with 33 much larger engines.
Yeah, and having those engines, and oh my gosh, I love this shot. We can see looking up into the launch mount at the 33 engines on the booster. Those are each of the Raptor engines that's going to power today's launch attempt.
Yeah, this is an incredible view. One of my favorite views that we're going to get today. We don't have this kind of view on our Falcon 9 launches, so this is so exciting to see. You can even make out the paint markers indicating which engine is which. Like we said, there are 33 of them. So there's a lot of fire that's going to be coming out from those engines in just over 31 minutes from now. As we mentioned before, there are 33 of them on the Super Heavy, the booster, and we don't see it right now, but the cluster in the center are the ones that are actually going to gimbal and help steer the booster back down for its water landing in the Gulf.
Yeah, and they're a little bit different, Kate, than our Falcon engines. So on Falcon, we use a gas generator cycle. Here's a fantastic shot, actually, at the inner stage, so we can see the 6 engines that are on the ship side, 3 gimbaling in the middle, and then the vacuum engines, you can see 2 of them, and the other ones on the other side of the cluster in the middle here. So Raptor's a little bit different. It uses something called stage combustion, which means we basically pre-burn both the fuel side and the aux side, and then get those up to the right temperatures and pressures, and then mix them in the combustion chamber. It allows us to get higher thrust and higher efficiency on these engines than on Falcon 9. Now, Super Heavy also has 4 grid fins to assist with orienting itself during the return back to Earth. as today is the fully integrated flight test, and the first one, we're focusing on safely testing just the fundamental systems and operations on the vehicle. So what that means is we won't be attempting to land on land today. Instead, Super Heavy is going to be making that hard water landing in the Gulf.
Starship, or the spacecraft, is the second stage and makes up the top portion of the vehicle. It's designed for carrying passengers and cargo between destinations on Earth, Earth orbit, and planetary destinations. It stands 50 meters tall, a little taller than the Statue of Liberty. It's comprised of 6 Raptors. We saw those just moments ago. 3 of them are optimized for sea level, and the other 3 are vacuum engines, they're optimized to operate in the vacuum of space. They provide a maximum of 258,000 tons of thrust in vacuum. The spacecraft is also outfitted with 4 flaps to help aerodynamically control the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric flight and enable precise landing at the intended location. You can see a view of those flaps there.
Now you can see the entire stack is vertical, and that's because Starship is designed for vertical takeoff and landing, as opposed to taking off and landing like an airplane. And that's really important because we don't have runways on the Moon and Mars. Fortunately, gravity at both of those destinations is not nearly as high as it is here on Earth. On Mars, it's about a third of what Earth's gravity is. But on the Moon, the gravity is just a sixth of what it is here. So Starship can take off in both of those cases without needing the Super Heavy booster like we need here on Earth. Now, for today's test, Starship does not have its landing legs attached, and that's because we aren't going to be attempting to return to the launch site or land on land. It's going to be doing another hard water landing at the end of today's test.
We can't wait. Starship is wrapped in a heat shield, which is composed of 18,000 hexagonal ceramic tiles designed to insulate the vehicle during atmospheric entry, where temperatures can be as high as 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. The hex-shaped tiles, like these ones that we have here, roughly make up about 2/3 of the vehicle. There's a couple of different geometries. The one that I have is for the circular portions of the vehicle, so it has this curvature to it. And the one that Shiva has.
Yeah, this kind of is a hexagonal shape, and there's several thousand of these all across the body of the vehicle. And it's worth saying we need these because when a spacecraft re-enters from orbital velocity, it's going faster than the speed of sound and causes a lot of heat to build up that has to get dissipated by these heat shield tiles.
Yeah, one thing that's really cool about these is they're super lightweight. Even just holding them, we're able to even just like hear how hollow they are because of the construction. But they do a great job of dispersing that heat during that atmospheric reentry. We actually produce these in-house at what we like to call the SpaceX bakeries. And they're located in Texas and Florida. So it's something that we designed and build in-house. And like we said, there's thousands of them. You can kind of see them on the exterior of the vehicle. So at this point in time, we are at T-minus 27 minutes and 18 seconds. So let's head on over to John Innsbrucker for an update on the countdown. Hey, John.
Thanks, Kate, and good morning. I'm John Innsbrucker, Principal Integration Engineer here at SpaceX. We're currently loading propellant from the ground system into both the first and second stages. Now, both vehicles use the same 2 propellants. Our fuel is liquid methane at a temperature of just over 100 kelvins, or about minus 272 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this is a different fuel from Falcon 9, where we use RP1 kerosene. And our oxidizer is liquid oxygen, the same as Falcon 9. But because there's no oxygen in space to support combustion, we have to bring our own. Now, a little bit of a recap. We did the go, no go poll at T-minus 1 hour and 45 minutes. And once the team gave their goes, we polled about 20 folks. We started loading propellants onto the booster at T-minus 1 hour and 39 minutes. And at T-minus 1 hour and 22 minutes, we began propellant loading of the ship, the second stage on Starship. Now, LOX loading of the second stage main tank is almost complete right now, but we'll actually stretch it out and wrap it up and finish at T-minus 5 minutes. And then at T-minus 3 minutes, as the booster finishes loading, the vehicle will be fully loaded with just over 10 million pounds propellant. Now, currently in the countdown, we've just passed the T-minus 26 minute mark. The good news is weather's looking good. You can see the blue skies there on the camera views from the drone. The only thing we're watching is winds. They are within limits at ground level. We expect they may pick up a little bit as we get farther into the window should we need to go that far. But the good news right now is that the weather is looking good. The range also is looking pretty good. We've moved almost all the boats out of the keep out zone overnight. We are working one, but we're still underway. And right now, as a reminder, if for any reason we do not make our test flight today, we have backup launch windows. This could be the 24 or 48 hours after today, and it'll depend on how far we get into the countdown. But coming up on 25 minutes to go, everything is looking good, Kate.
In order to make life multiplanetary, we need a fully reusable vehicle that's capable of carrying a huge amount of cargo and a lot of people to orbit and have a pretty quick turnaround. The idea is to effectively reuse launch vehicles just like airplanes. Crowd is getting excited here in Hawthorne behind Mission Control, as you can hear. Now, imagine if you had to wait for a new airplane to be constructed every time you wanted to fly. You'd rarely go anywhere, and it would probably be completely unaffordable for most of us. In order for us to get to Mars and back with lots of people multiple times, reusability is a must.
Now, in the near term and a bit closer to home here on Earth, Starship will be critical to other programs as well. Once it's operational, Starship will deliver the full-size and upgraded version of our Starlink satellites. And that's super exciting because our next-generation satellites represent a step forward in Starlink's capabilities and will provide more bandwidth and increased reliability to connect millions of people around the world with high-speed internet.
And of course, Starship will fly a number of human spaceflight missions in the lead up to our first missions to Mars. Entrepreneur and pilot Jared Isaacman will command the first human spaceflight on Starship as part of the Polaris program. Jared served as a commander for Inspiration 4, the first all-civilian mission to orbit. Inspiration 4 launched aboard our Dragon spacecraft and Falcon 9 in September 2021, raising over $240 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The first human spaceflight on Starship will launch as part of the Polaris program, and you can learn more about that series of missions at polarisprogram.com.
Now, our first lunar mission around the moon aboard Starship will be led by Japanese entrepreneur Yusaku Maezawa, also known as MZ. MZ flew to space for the first time in December 2021, and he purchased all of the seats aboard Starship's first lunar mission in order to give artists and creators from all over the world the opportunity to go. And the hope is that what they will create in space will further inspire all of us here back on planet Earth. Now, over 1 million people applied for this mission, and earlier this year, they announced the final 8 crew members were selected, and you can learn more about them and MZ's mission at dearmoon.earth.
Dennis and Akiko Tito are the first 2 crew members announced to fly on Starship's second commercial spaceflight around the moon. This will be Dennis's second mission to space after becoming the first commercial astronaut to visit the International Space Station in 2001, and Akiko will be among the first women to fly around the moon on a Starship. The Titos joined the mission to contribute to SpaceX's long-term goal to advance human spaceflight and help make life multiplanetary.
SpaceX is also incredibly honored to be part of NASA's Artemis program to establish a sustainable presence on the moon to prepare for missions to Mars. Starship's early test launches, followed by those regular Starlink deployment missions and propellant transfer demonstrations, are directly advancing NASA's Artemis program, along with SpaceX's ongoing mission to make life multiplanetary.
SpaceX will conduct an uncrewed demonstration mission to the moon prior to the Artemis 3 mission, which will mark humanity's first return to the lunar surface in more than 50 years. It's an exciting future, but let's talk a little about how we got to today.
Now, Starship testing ramped up in July of 2019 with the Star Hopper prototype. It's sort of a short version of the Starship that we see today. There's a picture of it on your screen, the lovable water tower. Now, standing at just over 18 meters tall, the Star Hopper had a single engine and was test flown to perform landing and low-level altitude maneuvers. Starship's initial flight test was a hop that reached about 20 meters in altitude, This was followed by a second hop, the one that we've got on our screen, that rose to 150 meters in altitude. We took a little jaunt away from the launch pad and ended up landing about 100 meters or so further away from it, and you can see that on your screen. Now, notably, this was the first time that we had used a Raptor engine in flight and demonstrated control of this kind.
As a Star Wars fan, I can't not see a flying R2-D2 there. Now, after a series of 150-meter hop tests with earlier prototypes, the Starship program saw a huge breakthrough during a test flight of the vehicle known as serial number 8, or SN8. SN8 demonstrated a first-of-its-kind controlled aerodynamic descent and landing flip maneuver. Yes, I'm talking about the belly flop. This 12.5-kilometer hop test took place December 2020 and saw the SN8 prototype ascend to an altitude of 12.5 kilometers and conduct a belly flop maneuver. While it didn't stick the landing, the test was a major milestone in the development of Starship.
I love seeing the belly flop maneuver. Now, testing continued with the prototype on serial number 9. That was a 10-kilometer flight test in February of 2021. We had a nominal ascent, engine cutoff, reorientation, and controlled descent were stable. However, we unfortunately had a dramatic ending to the end of that flight when we had a failure on its engine to relight. That resulted in one of those rapid unscheduled disassemblies. But what was really, really exciting about both serial numbers 8 and 9 is how quickly we were able to achieve just our primary objectives in those two high-altitude test flights. In addition to getting lots of great data, Starship successfully demonstrated control of the vehicle and subsonic re-entry capability.
Ultimately, we performed 9 Starship high-altitude test flights in total, and in May of 2021, SN15 launched from Starbase, reached an altitude of about 10 kilometers, performed a number of maneuvers, and safely returned to the launch site. This was the first Starship prototype to fly, control its descent, safely land, and to be recovered in one piece.
Now, having achieved that success in our suborbital campaign, one of the next big challenges for upper stage reusability is to survive the high heating hypersonic phase of entry. Combined with the ability to refill our Starship's tank with fuel and oxygen while on orbit is what will enable a fully reusable transportation system that's designed to carry both crew and cargo on these long-duration interplanetary flights, and that's ultimately what will help humanity return to the moon and travel to Mars and beyond in our solar system.
So as you can tell, it is nothing but an iterative process to get to the point that we are today and where we will go from here. That iteration is a core process of how we work here at SpaceX. We like to fly and we like to test early and often, both on the side of hardware and software.
Yeah, that's an awesome point, Kate. Now, we are continuing our countdown to Starship liftoff just over 17 minutes from now. So, of course, let's check in with John for another status update. John?
Thanks, Shiva. Clock is coming up on T-minus 17 minutes from liftoff. We're continuing to click towards 0. However, right now, we've just begun listening in. The first stage team is working a pressurization issue. They're troubleshooting that right now. Now, we do have the option, if need be, if we can't solve this, then we would hold the count and probably treat today as a wet dress and not be able to launch. However, we are continuing to do propellant loading on both the Super Heavy and the ship stages. Now, most recently, we began loading liquid oxygen and methane fuel into the header tanks on Starship. At the very top, just underneath the nose there are 2 small spherical tanks. That's where the fuel and liquid oxygen header tanks are. That started at T-minus 27 minutes, and that propellant loading will continue until T-minus 9 minutes. We'll also continue loading the main tanks of the Starship second stage, although they're pretty much full right now. Everything will drain back as we get ready for launch at T-minus 5 minutes. Now, on the first stage, we're continuing to load the massive amount of propellant onto the Super Heavy booster. That's going to continue until T-minus 3 minutes. You can see the frost line on some of the views as both liquid methane and liquid oxygen go into the tank. It's 16 minutes and counting. We're also currently configuring the launch pad for liftoff. The booster hold downs are being prepared for the release at liftoff, and the second stage quick disconnect is beginning its configuration for release. The liquid oxygen and methane that are going into the second stage go through that quick disconnect. You can see it in some of the views, the arm that comes out just to the base of the second stage, and that'll move out of the way as we lift off. At the same time, the SpaceX team continues to check in with the Coast Guard. We're working one boat that's in the safety perimeter. They are working to get that boat out of the way. We cleared several other boats out overnight. We're down to one, and we expect that'll be clear so that we can proceed with launch out over the Gulf of Mexico. But as a reminder, T-minus 15 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. We are working an issue on the first stage, and we'll bring an update as we get more insight into that issue.
Now, today's test flight is taking place out of our Starbase facility in South Texas, and that facility has gone through a tremendous amount of change and growth in a really short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, 3 years ago, not much even existed there. It was a very different scene, as you can see by that photo there on your screen. Fast forward to today, and the team is building out an entire production line.
Yeah, last year they built 4 Starship Super Heavy boosters, 5 Starships, our 200th Raptor 2 engine, and this year they're targeting 5 boosters, 8 Starships in production for 2023. And really, you do need a production system to rapidly iterate, like we were talking about earlier, on the design of the vehicle as we learn more about it from these large tests.
Yeah, absolutely. Pulling on my industrial engineering background, system fill is something that is critical to that goal. Being able to produce and launch multiple Starships means that we have to have a system full of those production vehicles, and we iterate on each one. So even the next Starship that will fly in whatever the next test is will be different than the one that you see there on your screen now.
Now, the employees who have been at SpaceX a while say that Starbase does remind them of the early Falcon 1 days, except moving a whole lot faster.
The team at Starbase is expanding as fast as the facilities are, and if you've ever wondered what life at Starbase is like, here's a quick peek. Employees and is actually the largest employer in the area.
Yeah, and from that video, you can really tell, like, it's a beautiful location. It's close to the ocean. There's tons of wildlife. And that's because being close to the equator is actually a fantastic way to get to orbit.
Yeah, I love that we have so many employee events that allow us to participate with ocean cleanup and other environmental efforts there. We'd also like to thank Cameron County for being so supportive for all of our work in that area. Now, in addition to Starbase, we'll soon be adding another Texas location to the SpaceX family. We're opening a new facility in Bastrop, Texas, just outside of Austin, to support Starlink hardware production. The new facility will be over 500,000 square feet of manufacturing space, and the team has already started hiring.
Now, we have all kinds of openings in production and manufacturing for technicians and leadership and manufacturing engineers and all kinds of site support roles. Basically, if you can think of a role, we're probably hiring for it.
So if you're interested in helping expand human life to other planets or helping internet access here on Earth, consider becoming part of the SpaceX team at spacex.com/careers. Now, with that, let's check back in with Zach down at Starbase one last time before launch. Howdy, Zach.
Hello, Kate and Shiva again. You can really feel the energy here at South Padre Island as more of the SpaceX team have gathered. We're standing just over 5 miles away from the launch mount, and so from here we've got a very nice view. I would basically say these are some of the best front row seats you could get, and might I add, beachside as well. Now, the Starship team has worked incredibly hard to get ready for this test, and we're all clearly excited for T0. And as we get into the final moments, one issue that could hold the countdown or cancel the test altogether is if a boat enters the safety perimeter. Now, over my shoulder is the Gulf of Mexico, which is normally very open to all of the boaters and fishers. However, today, SpaceX is closely coordinating with the United States Coast Guard to establish a safe zone and ensure public safety. And up to T0, SpaceX is in regular communication with the Coast Guard to ensure there are no boats in the area leading up to the launch. Now, fingers crossed that does not happen. Now, I'll throw it back to the folks at Hawthorne as we get closer and closer to that T-0.
We're just inside T-minus 9 minutes and counting. We're listening on one of the background loops right now. Flight director is talking about the issue we've had on first stage, working the pressurization system. Decision right now is that we are going to stop the launch for today. We're going to transition the launch attempt to a wet dress rehearsal. So that means we're going to continue with the countdown sequence of events. We'll continue loading propellant, finishing up here shortly on the second stage. We'll also continue loading propellant onto the first stage, wrapping up at T-minus 3 minutes. We're also going to go through pressurization steps, other steps of the countdown. This will be a full validation for the team, but currently the plan right now is we're waiting for final word, is that I think at T-minus 10 seconds, we will finally stop the clock and then recycle the countdown for today. Now we're inside T-minus 8 minutes and counting. We're continuing to load propellant on both the first and second stage. You can see the Starship second stage with the heat shield tiles there. Carriage arms are open. You can see the condensation around the first stage tank as we load liquid methane, the liquid oxygen into the large super heavy first stage. And that propellant loading is continuing until T-minus 3 minutes. As a reminder, and there's our great view looking up at the Raptor engines, the 33 engines. There's an outer ring of 20 engines, and then there's an inner set of 13. Those are the engines that can gimbal and adjust the course of the Starship vehicle on the way up, and of course the first stage as it comes back down towards the water landing in the Gulf of Mexico. Now when both stages are loaded, you can see the condensation frost on the side of the first stage. We'll have just over 10 million pounds of liquid propellant on board. Inside T-minus 7 minutes, we're continuing to count. Team is preparing for the hold and scrub at T-minus 10 seconds. Now the good news is everything's been going good. We're just working that one issue. So we are continuing to count. Team will get this as an excellent opportunity to run the end-to-end of the system. Now in a launch, in the next few minutes, the guidance system would be performing its final alignment. We will be doing that this morning. The automated flight termination system would be armed. We won't need to arm it today as we won't be flying. And we'll do final thrust vector control checkouts, what we call wiggles of the Raptor engines on the first and second stages. Now, normally in a countdown, if we needed to hold, here's a view of the second stage Raptor engines, just above the first stage. Now, as I mentioned, in a regular countdown, if we needed to hold, that would come at T-minus 40 seconds. That's the point in the countdown where we can pause to wait for final checkouts or pressurization to complete. Earlier this morning, we thought we might have to hold at 40 seconds. Everything's looking good, except for the one pressurization issue that the team is going to have to troubleshoot after this morning. So we won't stop at 40 seconds right now. We'll continue all the way down to 10 seconds, and then we'll go into a recycle.
Into a wet dress rehearsal here, and I actually
now
think
we're coming up T-minus 5 minutes. Overall, though, Kate Shiva, it's been a good day. It's a little sad listening to the flight director say that we're going to have to stop at 10 seconds, but I guess that's for everybody. It gives us a real run-through of the launch vehicle.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Of course, we wanted to see fire today and lift off. But that's okay. The point of the countdown is to allow the teams to progress to that T0 time in a coordinated fashion and really to
pero que lo que están fent és un assaig i que ja no paran fins al final. Estaran fins a menys 10 segons, com si estigués fent un assaig, però se queda, com ha dit el Paco ara, wet. Un assaig de carregar tot el líquid, però no llença.
Que ningún dels altres tres sistemes funcioni, no?
Bueno, fan un test complet, excepte apretar el ping cap a dalt. Però ells han trobat un problema algo de pressurització a un dels tancs. O sigui que, com dèiem ara al xat de Pere, scrup.
Onto the pad that exercises our procedures for the mission control teams. We're monitoring telemetry on the mission control consoles, looking at the pressures and the rates and the temperatures, and some of those things look a little bit
sí, però vamos, estan fent l'assaig fins al final, vull dir que potser diuen de llançar-ho demà.
Pressurization levels and full propellant load. So
bueno,
we're learning things today about the integrated tasks that are going to set us up for success in a future attempt later on, hopefully in the next 48 hours or so. And Kate, like it's also worth mentioning here, we're still going to take the count through
ya sabem que eso de, como diría nuestro amigo Eduardo Alonso, el espacio va despacio, siempre pasan cosas.
So we're really going to exercise everything that
bueno, Ferri, que vagi bé, cuida't.
Molt bé, pues moltes gràcies, Andreu.
Yeah, it's like we said before, any data that we can collect today is super helpful, and that's exactly what we're doing. We are continuing to collect this data and allow the teams to have be better informed for the next attempt. Unfortunately, due to the needing to recycle the propellant, we are looking at a minimum of 48 hours until we are able to attempt this flight test again. So we're not quite sure what that timing will be at the moment, but we're looking at a minimum of 48 minutes, or excuse me, 48 hours at this point in time. But Shiva, exactly as you said, things look a little bit different on launch day, and we allowed the countdown to do its job, to basically get to this point, to allow the teams to work through the issues, and we're going to continue, like we said before, we're going to continue all this down all the way to T-minus 10 seconds, and that will really allow the teams to pretend like this is launch day and continue and gather that data.
Yeah, Kate, it's on the one hand, it's a little bittersweet. On the other hand, we watched them go all the way through. First stage propellant load, just now wrapping up. The second stage, even the header tanks up under the nose of the Starship that you can see on the monitors. Actually, that all went very well today. The weather was excellent. Everything was looking good. Sadly, we just have the one issue, but that is letting the team continue to count down. And we're going to continue with it here until we get the clock hold at T-minus 10.